G'day geeks, I'm Chris, and in my hands are 9 Superpowers figures. So these are the figures from McFarlane Toys, all focused on DC Comics characters in a retro 80s style. Let's open these up. Here we have Green Lantern Kilowog, Superman from the Justice Lords, 1990s Nightwing, Gold Batman, Batman of Zur-En-Arrh, Beast of Gold, Wonder Woman, Metamorpho, and Superman from the Fleischer 1940s cartoon. We're going to look at all of these individually. I think I got all of these from Pop Culture here in Australia except for the Wonder Woman, and I'm going to open them all up. I mean, thanks to Amazon, where I got Wonder Woman from. She's pretty much almost fully opened and her cape is skew-whiffed anyway. So this is how I received it, so she's pretty much open anyway. But we're going to look at all of these and see what they are all about. So I've got quite a few of these figures, as you can imagine. So McFarlane Toys released the Superpowers line in 2022 and it's still going strong. They're basically based on the Kenner Superpowers collection from 1984 to 1986. Much beloved by collectors like myself, so when McFarlane Toys brought them back, we were all happy. So they're the retro style, very much like the 80s flavour. Here is Metamorpho. All of these figures have 7 points of articulation. 1, 2, the head is 3, both legs, 4, 5, and 6, 7. So they've all got 7 points of articulation. Most of them don't come with accessories, which is a bit unfortunate because the 80s one did. And yes, they're releasing a lot of characters that the Kenner line in the 80s didn't release, such as Metamorpho here, who, by the way, will appear in the new Superman film from James Gunn coming out next year. I'm happy to see Metamorpho in action figure form. Let's look at some of the others. 2 much loved DC Comics characters here. They haven't seen a lot of screen time outside of the comics, so probably not that familiar to people outside of the comics. But on the left we have Booster Gold. He's a janitor, disgraced athlete, I believe, from the 25th century, and he travelled back into time, our time, to kind of become a superhero, but mainly to get fame, and then, you know, had his heart changed and became good deeds for more than just fame. He wanted to be a genuine hero, so he kind of stole a lot of future accessories and replicas, and he used that future tech to become a hero in our present. But yes, Beast of Gold sporting his classic design, including the Legionnaire's flight ring, which is on his right hand there, which is a nice touch. He's had a few different costumes over the years, but they've always kind of had the shades and the blue and gold. He's most often teamed with Blue Beetle, which is a character I did want, and he was available at Pop Culture, but he sold out so quickly, so I'm really on the hunt for Beast of Gold's crime-fighting friend, Blue Beetle, but I'll have to pick that up somewhere else. And here we have Kilowog from Green Lantern. He was in the Ryan Reynolds Green Lantern film, but voiced by Michael Clark Duncan, I believe. He is a chunky fella. He's a hefty fella. So he's the one that kind of trains the Green Lanterns. And classic card art, even though that Booster Gold art on the front of the card isn't very dynamic. They've both got the logo, but strangely enough, it doesn't actually say Kilowog's name on his card art. It just says Green Lantern Corps. It doesn't actually say Kilowog's name, which is a bit of an odd choice. On the back, it tells you a bit about who Kilowog is, and it also tells you a bit about who Beast of Gold is. So yes, 2 much loved fan favourite characters, and I'm very glad that both of them have their time in the retro action figure spotlight. Here we have Wonder Woman and Nightwing. So Wonder Woman, at least unlike some of the other figures in this line, looks like the wonderful card art. That's the beautiful artwork by Jose Luis Garcia Lopez. I mentioned him during my first video on Nexus Toy Fair when I picked up the Superpowers lunchbox, which is from the 80s, and as I said, McFarlane figures are inspired by the 80s line. So Wonder Woman is the only female figure that's been released thus far. There have been 2 versions of her, but there are so many good female characters that DC Comics have. It would be awesome if they could release characters like Black Canary or Supergirl, Batgirl, Wonder Girl, Power Girl, Jessie Quick. Yeah, there's, you know, Catwoman. There's so many different female versions that they could release, so hopefully they do. Otherwise we just have Wonder Woman as the only female figure so far, which is a bit unfortunate. On the left we have Nightwing. So Nightwing, for those not in the know, is the grown-up version of Robin. So the first Robin, Dick Grayson, and this is his 1990s costume with the blues and the golds and the darker blues, and he's one of the only figures that comes with accessories. His Screamer Sticks, which is his weapon of choice. So you can see again the card art on the back, not exactly like the figure, and this is repurposed artwork. So they've kind of, I can't recall what panel this is from, but that's definitely not the colours, so they've kind of just recolored it. Also oddly, they don't have Nightwing's name, they've just got his symbol. So much like the Kilowog version, they didn't put his name on the card. Very odd. But yes, flip it over, you can see this is earlier in the line because there's only a few figures released there. It's 21, bit of a bio of Nightwing. Flick Wonder Woman's card over, and there's a bit of a bio of her. And this is even earlier in the line. There's only 14 figures at that time. Here are a couple of different versions of Superman using the same body, same sculpt, all that kind of stuff. On the right we have the Justice Lord's Superman, and you might be thinking that's an interesting costume for Superman. I've never seen that before. So this is from a episode in the Justice League 2003 animated series, where there was alternate versions of the Justice League, and they sported different costumes. I like this costume. I like that it keeps the red, and he's kind of got the grey hair. Wonderful cape. This is the capes are all very similar to the original Kenner, where they've got this little bit of wire that kind of pinches around the neck. They're removable, and very, very similar, and a much greater improvement in the later waves and the current waves than the original capes were from McFarlane Toys. So yes, you can see they all have the same sculpting. They've got the lines of the undies on the outside, and yeah, this is a pretty cool version of Superman. And on the left we have the Superman from the 1940s, Fleischer Studios animated series of shorts. I think they made 17 shorts. So if you just Google Fleischer Superman, you'll see a bunch of them, and the animation is spectacular. It still holds up. It's remarkable. So in that costume, which is closer to the costume of the original 40s with the blacks and that kind of stuff. So your darker colours, more triangular kind of and simplified emblem, but you can see that the sculpt is exactly the same really. But yes, look at the different styles of costume that Superman has had, and the card art doesn't always reflect the actual figure, but in these two cases it does. I think this is a repurposed version from another panel in the comics and just kind of recolored to look like the Justice Lord's figure here, but the back very much looks like the 80s Kenner with a bit of a bio of the character and all the different vehicles and figures that are available. So yes, as you can see, there's quite a few different figures available in the Superpowers line, and so we'll flick this over as well, and that's basically just got the normal standard bio of Superman without needing reference to the Fleischer Studios. But you see the costume, you see the logo, people know what it is. Speaking of different coloured versions of classic characters, here we have the gold version of Batman, which is also a nod to the Kenner style action figure, and he's pretty much what we have come to know and love. He's got the wonderful cape, the spikes on the gloves, the utility belt, all that kind of stuff. It's very similar. And here on the left we have the Batman of Zur and R, which was basically, if you can imagine, like an acid trip Batman, where there's a lot of psychosis involved, and it was a very, very weird story. Grant Morrison brought it back a few decades later. It was originally a 60s story, I believe, and Grant Morrison did a wonderful version where Batman made this kind of, he regressed into a different personality or something. He made this patchwork costume and kind of sewed it all together out of different coloured fabric. It was pretty weird, but also very, very interesting. And the back of the card Sorry, the front of the card shows the artwork, but again, recolored and repurposed. This isn't a picture that was used in the original Zero Hour storyline. Bit of a bio that tells you about the Batman of Zero Hour. But it's pretty interesting to get this in this kind of retro style figure. The colours pop. So yeah, same character but different sculpt. So you can see 6 abs here, 4 abs there. It's more chunky body and a more rounder face, where he's got a stronger jawline here. So I don't know, more powerlifting here, more cardio here. But yes, those are definitely 2 different versions of Batman. Here's 5 more figures. So the Superman and Batman were the Wave 1 releases, along with Darkseid. And at the front we've got John Stewart, Green Lantern, Batman in his all-black suit, and Flash. John Stewart, Green Lantern, is one of the few, just like Nightwing, that comes with an actual accessory, whereas the 80s Superpowers figures pretty much all came with accessories, really. I also got this from Kmart for like $6. So there was a time when Kmart were stocking the Superpowers figures, not every figure, but certainly some waves, and these were discounted for $6, and I thought I'll grab one of them. So yes, if you are after some cheap figures, grab these. I mean, that is one of the good things about these. They don't come with a bunch of accessories. The packaging design, even though it is a nod to the 80s, is very simple. They clearly don't spend necessarily a lot of their art budget on the packaging, but at least these figures are readily available at retail shelves some of the time, and they're cheap, and that's not a bad thing. And they just keep pumping out these Superpowers figures, so that is also not a bad thing at all. This is a Parademon, which you might recall from the Justice League film, but they looked very different. So this is the only carded version from the Kenner 80s line that I have. I had quite a few of the Superpowers figures growing up. None of them have survived. I don't have any of my childhood Superpowers from the 80s, unfortunately. So that's why another reason I'm quite thankful that McFarlane Toys is releasing them. But you can see the design cues very similar. They've got the Superpowers logo, the character name at the top, and they've got the yellow and the red stars, and the artwork of the character on the front. If we flip it over, you can also see that it shows the bio of the character. The new versions have it in different languages, whereas the original 80s one just had it in English, and that could show a bit more about the character, the weaknesses, all that kind of stuff. They've also got some of the checklist figures on the back, also very similar to the new version at the back there. So yes, you can see that they've released 39 figures so far, so that's not bad for a line that's only been around since 2022. And this is all the figures that were available at the time. Well, there's more for that, but when the Parademon was released, these were the figures that were available then. So yes, you can see the card is pretty damaged. So he's pretty damaged at all. And although also you can see they're free comic books. So yes, all the Kenner Superpowers figures came with a little mini comic. Thankfully, even though I don't have my figures from the 80s, I do have all my mini comics, which I'm very, very thankful about. So yes, clearly they've paid attention to the design. But the other thing that the 80s figures had, which these ones don't, were basically action features, where you'd squeeze their legs together and their arms would move, or you'd squeeze their arms together and their legs would move, that kind of thing. But to keep costs down, I guess, and to keep tooling and engineering down, the new figures do not do that. A few more modern figures inspired by the Kenner Superpowers line. So on the left are a bunch of figures from the DC Universe Classics line that ran from 2008 to 2014, and they released all of the figures that were originally released in the 1980s and a bunch of others, and including this one, Cyclotron, clearly inspired by the Superpowers line. So yes, the Superpowers line of action figures is very, very influential. Speaking of DC Universe Classics, this is a homage to the gold version of Superman that was released in the 80s. I picked this up on the cheap a while ago from Big Bad Toy Store in America, and this shows all 50 figures that were released in the original DC Universe Classics line, paying homage to the Superpowers line as well. Familiar design elements, and the DC Universe Classics line is very much respected by collectors as well. So very glad got this gaudy gold version of Superman. You'll certainly see him flying through the streets of Metropolis in that outfit. As I said, the Superpowers references and influences are far and wide. These are variant covers of DC Comics various issues that have been released this year. So I've got 3 so far, but there's a few more in the line, and these are basically just variant covers paying homage, I've said homage so many times in this video, to the Superpowers line with all that familiar design elements, the fake action figure, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, quite fascinating. So these are figures that weren't released in the original Superpowers line, and they're basically, obviously they're made up to look like the original kind of 80s one, and you can see the rounded corners, the little, you know, logos and the character name, the design elements, they're all very familiar. And if we flick it over again, you can see that these variant covers also have the checklist, the vehicles. These are all just concept art, so these figures and vehicles aren't going to be released. It's just something to put on the comic. And yeah, there's a few more of these coming out. So the other one I have here is Kid Flash. And if you want to see what these looks like, follow I mean, I like that kind of fake price. Follow Toy Otter on Instagram. He's the designer, one of the designers of this line, and you can see the painstaking elements he went to get this so realistic looking, very nice looking. So yes, check out the Superpowers covers next time you're at your friendly local comic book shop. Look at the colour. I love all them when they're on display like this. It's pretty awesome, and I'll definitely be keeping the card backs from these figures as well. So I said I don't have my original Kenner line of 80s Superpowers figures, unfortunately, even though I have the mini comics, but I have managed to pick up a couple on the cheap over the last couple of years, including Superman. So this is the Kenner 1984 version, I believe. This is a reproduction cape, and the other figure I have is a Dr. Fate, another classic character with a reproduction cape, and hopefully the action features still work. But yes, you would squeeze his legs, and there we go, Superman's doing a punchy, and I think Dr. Fate has something similar. Or maybe, yeah, he's a bit of, you know, he's tired. But yeah, so basically with the original Kenner figures, you would squeeze their arms or legs or whatever, and they do like ninja kicks or flying fist action or whatever weird names they gave them. So very similar, as you can see. We compare them to the McFarlane Toys. Similar scale, similar points of articulation, just not without the action features. So very similar indeed. If I could get more of the 1980s version, I would be very happy, but these fit very nicely on the shelf. And speaking of shelves, I have a dedicated Superpowers collection, because as I said, it means a lot, the original Superpowers line, to collectors, and there's been a lot of different homages and variants. I'm so happy to see Superpowers back, the much beloved 80s toy line, back in its various forms. So yes, keep your eye out for more McFarlane Toys versions of Superpowers in the future. Thank you as always for watching. Goodbye, geeks.